early morning of April 23, 1945, at precisely 2:47 a.m., Staff Sergeant Robert Chen positioned himself with his modified Springfield M1903A4 rifle. The weapon had been significantly altered from its standard configuration. Above the action sat an unconventional optical device, weighing an additional 2.8 pounds, considerably heavier than the typical uninertal scope he normally used. Complete darkness enveloped the approaches to Kakazu Ridge that night. Visibility was so limited that Chen couldn't distinguish his own hand positioned mere inches from his face. The same conditions affected the 437 Japanese troops entrenched in defensive positions throughout the hillside terrain. However, Chen possessed a unique advantage. Through his specialized infrared optical device, the nocturnal landscape transformed into varying shades of green and white. Heat signatures appeared as luminous forms against the cooler background environment. Approximately 183 yards to the northeast, a Japanese machine gun operator adjusted his position within a concealed spatter hole. Chen observed the soldier's body heat creating a distinct outline against the surrounding earth. The temperature differential measured only 8 degrees Fahrenheit, yet the M2 sniper scope's cascaded image converter tube amplified this subtle contrast into clearly visible imagery. Beside Chen crouched Corporal James Nakamura, his spotter, managing a 24-pound battery pack. The TM-11 power unit produced a subtle humming sound as it supplied 1,500 volts to the scope's photocathode. Their remaining operational time was limited to approximately 4.3 hours of battery life. When the machine gunner rose from his position, Chen controlled his breathing, exhaled gradually, and applied pressure to the trigger. The Japanese dominance of nocturnal combat. Throughout the Pacific conflict, Japanese forces had established undisputed superiority in nighttime military operations. This wasn't merely tactical preference, it was documented reality, evidenced by American casualties across 3 years of island campaigns. From December 1941 through January 1945, United States forces documented 14,477 casualties resulting from Japanese infiltration attacks conducted during darkness across the Pacific theater. Japanese military culture had emphasized night operations since their conflict with Russia during 1905 to 1906. Their soldiers moved through darkness with remarkable proficiency, having memorized terrain during daylight hours before executing sophisticated coordinated assaults without any illumination that might reveal their positions. During October 1942 on Guadalcanal, Japanese forces launched 17 distinct nighttime assaults against Marine positions. American defenders, unable to detect attackers until they reached grenade-throwing distance, sustained 1,042 fatalities and 2,099 wounded during these nocturnal encounters. Standard defensive doctrine required firing blindly into darkness at suspected enemy locations, expending enormous quantities of ammunition with estimated accuracy rates below 2%. The tactical challenge intensified with each successive island battle. At Tarawa in November 1943, Japanese infiltrators killed 127 Marines across 3 nights of combat, with many deaths occurring in hand-to-hand fighting within American foxholes. Flares provided temporary illumination, but created mutual exposure, revealing American positions as clearly as Japanese ones, and frequently triggered immediate mortar responses. By 1944, military leadership recognized night combat as a critical operational weakness. The search for solutions. Traditional illumination methods, searchlights, star shells, and magnesium flares shared a fundamental limitation. They revealed both attacker and defender equally, Any force illuminating the battlefield simultaneously marked itself as a target. Intelligence analyses from Saipan in June 1944 documented Japanese officers specifically training their units to exploit American night blindness. After sunset, enemy marksmen positioned themselves between 80 and 120 yards from U.S. defensive lines, close enough that muzzle flash revealed their location only momentarily before they relocated. These nocturnal hunters killed an estimated 400 Americans on Saipan alone, operating with relative impunity under cover of darkness. Both the Marine Corps and Army experimented with various solutions. Infrared technology existed. Germany had deployed the Zielgerät 1229 Vampire night vision device on STG-44 rifles in early 1945 on the Eastern Front. However, German systems were cumbersome, unreliable, and required active infrared illuminators that enemy forces equipped with similar technology could potentially detect. American forces required something fundamentally different, a passive system that wouldn't broadcast the shooter's position, something effective beyond 50 yards, something a trained marksman could practically employ in combat conditions. Development of the M2 sniper scope. The National Defense Research Committee, collaborating with RCA and Western Electric, had pursued image intensification technology development since 1942. Initial prototypes proved impractical, weighing up to 60 pounds, requiring vehicle-mounted power supplies, and producing barely usable imagery. However, by late 1944, the technology had matured substantially. The M2 sniper scope wasn't a simple piece of equipment. It was an integrated system where every component played a crucial role. The scope itself, officially designated T120, measured 14.7 inches in length and weighed 2.8 pounds when mounted. Unlike conventional optical scopes, it contained a cascaded image intensifier tube capable of amplifying available light by a factor of 75,000. The front objective lens gathered whatever ambient light existed, starlight, moonlight, or even atmospheric air glow from the upper atmosphere. This light struck a photocathode layer inside the tube, converting photons into electrons. Those electrons cascaded through multiple phosphor screens, with each impact generating additional electrons until a final phosphor screen that produced visible light for the operator. The scope required 1,500 volts of electrical potential to operate, sufficient to deliver a lethal shock if seals failed. Power came from the TM13 battery pack, a 24-pound unit carried by the spotter. This pack contained wet-cell lead-acid batteries and a vibrator transformer for voltage stepping. A 10-foot armored cable connected battery to scope, requiring sniper and spotter to maintain that precise distance during operations. The M1903A4 rifle received modifications, including a custom T17 mount positioned higher to accommodate the M2's bulk. This raised the sight line 0.7 inches above normal, affecting weapon balance and requiring operators to relearn their shooting technique. The complete system, rifle, scope, batteries, cables, and mount, totaled 37.6 pounds, compared to 9.6 pounds for a standard M1903A4 with conventional optics. The scope's effective range was classified, though field reports indicated usable target identification out to 400 yards in ideal conditions. Practically, most engagements occurred within 250 yards, where human-sized thermal signatures remained sufficiently distinct for accurate shot placement. Image quality was grainy, green-tinted, and two-dimensional, with no depth perception. The field of view measured only 7 degrees, roughly 1/4 of conventional optics. Battery life represented the system's primary limitation. Under optimal conditions, the TM-11 pack provided 5 hours of continuous operation, but the Pacific's tropical climate degraded batteries faster than specifications predicted. The first 30 M2 sniper scope systems arrived at Pearl Harbor on March 8, 1945, aboard the USS Sea Witch. They came in hermetically sealed cases with detailed maintenance documentation. The Office of Strategic Services had classified the technology as secret, with unauthorized disclosure carrying penalties of up to 10 years imprisonment. Training required 2 weeks. Selected marksmen and their spotters learned scope operation, battery maintenance, cable management, and tactical employment. They practiced in complete darkness, learning to trust the green glowing image rather than their natural night vision. Many struggled initially. The human eye adapts to darkness over 30 to 45 minutes, but the M2 defeated that biological adaptation. When operational conditions aligned properly, when atmospheric conditions were suitable, batteries held charge, and operators maintained proper technique, the M2 sniper scope granted a capability the enemy couldn't counter. It enabled American marksmen to hunt in darkness the Japanese considered their exclusive domain. Following Chen's initial success on April 23, 1945, additional M2-equipped teams deployed across Okinawa's southern sector. By April 26, 4 teams operated simultaneously, logging 67 confirmed kills during nighttime hours. Japanese forces began reporting ghost snipers who killed without visible muzzle flash or audible sound. Security protocols were stringent. Each M2 system carried tamper-evident serial numbers, unit armories maintained 24-hour guards on storage containers, and deployment required written authorization from battalion-level command or higher. If capture seemed imminent, standing orders required destroying the scope with thermite grenades. Long-term significance. Statistics from the 10th Army on Okinawa showed a 43% reduction in successful enemy infiltration attacks between April and June 1945. Nighttime American casualties dropped by 34% in sectors where M2 teams operated. The technology's psychological impact exceeded its direct military effect. Japanese soldiers began avoiding movement during darkness, surrendering the tactical initiative they'd maintained since 1941. The atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945 ended the war before expanded deployment plans materialized. The M2 sniper scope's combat use concluded on August 15, 1945, after only 4 months of operational deployment. Total manufacturing run, 137 complete systems, of which 89 had been deployed to combat zones. The War Department immediately classified all M2-related documentation as secret. The classification remained until March 1958, when the Army declassified selected portions for historical records. The 89 M2 systems returned from Pacific deployment underwent systematic destruction between October and December 1945. A single complete system, serial number T120-47, was retained for historical purposes and eventually transferred to the Smithsonian Institution's National Museum of American History in 1961. The fundamental concept, amplifying available light to create tactical advantage during nighttime operations, traces directly to those 137 M2 systems built in 1945. Every night vision device used by American forces today inherits design principles and operational concepts first proven on Okinawa's hills. The image intensifier cascade, the passive detection approach, the integration with precision rifles, all pioneered by the M2 program, changing warfare permanently.